of be members of the panel, and Alicia will be chairing it.
Sí.
Gracias. Bueno, bienvenidos a todos.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Laura and Guillermo, as well as all the speakers that we had in the first part of the panel. Well, today I'm going to chair this block in this part that we put together that brings together groups of researchers of the academia, the technical community, and the telecom industry. The idea is to explore challenges, needs, outlooks, and opportunities, but especially concrete ways people can collaborate. I mean, the different stakeholders can collaborate. With us today, I'm going to introduce them very briefly, given the very short time that we have. Douglas Fisher, for Fibras Servicio de Telecom Limitada, Brazil. He's a control and automation engineer. He works in the area of networks of telecom since 1999, and he's also a consultant in the network area, in the corporate sector and internet providers, and he's a very active participant in the technical community and in the policy development project. And Dr. Torre Alba, a researcher in Research Labs since 2019. At present, he's in charge of the project for detecting malicious domains as project manager, and he is a candidate for PhD. Paulo Lucente of Entity Data of the Netherlands. Paulo is part of the Network Tools team, the global network, the IT global network for IDT data, where he collects and processes data of network telemetry. He has a vast experience in network operations, and he has contributed to developing standards, being actively engaged with communities globally. And Pedro Marcos of the Federal University of Rio Grande, for Brazil. He is assistant professor, and he's the head of the research group on systems. He has a PhD on computing sciences at the Universidad de Rio Grande in Brazil, and traffic engineering, security, cybersecurity, peering interconnections, mitigation of attacks, and best routing and operational practices. So welcome you all, and thank you all for accepting to participate in this panel. So let me start by mentioning that in October, in the last event of LACNIC together with LACNOG in Asunción, where we had a similar meeting as this one. That was the first activity of this sort, and people mentioned several very interesting things. At the time, we called it a repository of problems or challenges and needs in internet operations, in the development of internet, and how these challenges might be approached through the collaboration between the academia's research groups, industry, and the technical community. And that is why precisely I'd like to start with this, identifying together with you, and based on your experience and your fields of work, I'd like to know the challenges and the key needs that you detect in each of your scopes and areas of work. Let's start with Douglas. Go ahead. Hello? Well, I'd like to speak Portuguese. Well, I find that that's a difficult question. It's difficult to start answering it. I already mentioned this when discussing with Pedro that some time ago I worked at a university, and I've worked with telecommunications, telecom for a long time, and I saw a huge distance between the academia and the network operators real life. There were two sorts of researchers, those that conducted research, utopic things that will be technology in some time, and the others that were prisoners of the past, repeating the teachings of things that are now no longer used. But they didn't see things that were happening today, everyday things. And what I didn't see at the time was a correlation between what you can measure and the cause of all this. It's almost an analysis, well, drawing the psychological profile of the network operators. Why do they identify this like this? Because something happened, explaining, accounting for that. Something happened that led to this result. I see a huge gap between the network operators, and I'm part of that group, trying to guess what's happening on the other side of the counter with a set of tools, an excellent set of tools, but things didn't fit with each other. So I met Pedro and others, and I think I got approached this world, and things are changing because I started to see a greater cohesion. So there we see the occurrence of commercial opportunities, because this can turn into a job, a product, and that makes me very happy, and even happier if we can find a solution for the end user, because in my view that's the most important thing in the end. The end user would have a better access to the internet because somebody invented something to improve that. So this proximity all the, and whenever possible I will contribute, and if somebody believes that I am capable of contributing with questions or data, I'll be there. Count on me. Well, so what is the distance that you notice between the academia and research undertaken? In many cases, they are related to the internet operations and the internet operators, and we'll go back to this. But just to close this issue, why do you think that, what do you think that accounts for that? Hello. Well, honestly, in my view, I think that, well, with due respect, the world of the academia has not accompanied or has not managed to walk hand in hand with the changes of technology. And with that, well, we saw that the curricula was developed, but it took them 30, 40 years to define it. But now, for 2 years, something will become obsolete and needs to be replaced. 10 years ago, a topic had you had to wait for a long time for it to get ratified to be part of the curricula. And today, the university or academia, in general terms, is not accompanying the market. And fortunately, that is changing now, or at least that's the way I see it. Good. So, from your point of view and your experience in specifically in the research line on the detection of malicious domains, what would you suggest about this? And specifically considering that research is focused on a scope that poses multiple challenges today. Well, thank you for the question. Indeed, at present, ever since the pandemic, we've suffered many cyber attacks. So we try to look for the state of the art and public data. And from my point of view, the greatest challenge was to bring these models that work very well with the state of the art, with the domain data that represent the entire internet, to bring them to a region. Because in my region, maybe the attacks act different. Maybe we don't have such a good accuracy. In 1995, it goes down to 80 because here it works differently. So first, as a region, we should be able to give the data in a safe manner so that we can move forward. Good, thank you. In this case, well, Paolo also continuing with these challenges and needs, and also for the development, not just the present, but also the future of the internet and the strengthening. I'd like you to give us a perspective from a global point of view, considering your career in the different regions.
My main perspective is from the side of network observability. Okay, better, much better. So yeah, what I was saying is that I bring. See, okay. I bring the perspective from network observability, right, in a global context. What I see is that the challenges in the field are pretty much infinite because we tend to make always the same mistake, like we invent a new technology, whatever it is, this technology works, and then only later we think, oh, we have to monitor this technology. So the monitoring and observability is always catching up on and it happened with BGP, with the DNS, but we keep redoing the same mistake. We just forget that at some point we have to observe all of this. So infinite challenges. The problem and where we are, what are the concrete needs right now with observability is that analytical methods we have a lot, but like now automating the observability, having AI on top of observability so that we can crunch all of the data that we have. That is another, something very practical challenge that we have in the field. Now, on the other hand, let's say observability is a niche market, so we always need fresh blood, so that it would be ideal to get new people. But we a little bit, and I will comment from a different perspective of what Douglas said before. The thing is that compared to when I started at the end of the 90s, like the bar now is much, much higher because technologies became more complex and things like that. And so it's like end of the 90s, I could be prepared to start and be like the frog with the boiling water, right? So get to the temperature. Now the temperature is very, very high, and you have a limited time in the university to prepare people. And so with a very high bar and limited time, then essentially you have a problem. And to conclude, I would say that another issue that we have is that, there is a lot of following the glamorous technology, right? So it is very true that, universities, for example, they try to prepare people following the keywords. Like, so what do we need to prepare people? Okay, cybersecurity, you name it, AI and whatever. So if you are in a little bit less glamorous field, like, I don't know, observability, it's more difficult to find people that are prepared for it. So those would be a little bit my assessment.
Muchas gracias. Sí.
Thank you for your feedback, and we will be coming back to that in one of the other questions. Thank you, Paolo. So, Pedro, in your position as a researcher in several fields and in fields that are related to internet operations, just to mention a few, for example, remote peering and traffic interconnection and other lines that you're developing right now, which would be, or what is your outlook on the main challenges that you are facing in this regard, and also the fact that you're also involved in the technical community? I think there are two things that I can speak about here. Observability. No tengo audio.
What we try to do, what we achieve for people, and very often data. We lack data, as Arturo said, so that we can have better comments and better methods of perspective. That is the other side of the story, and the collaboration relate. So the industry participates in the product of collecting data, and certainly that helps people. So as you said, the idea is to train our students better so that by the time they have to go to the market, they may be knowledgeable of what the market is requesting. Sometimes it is complicated because sometimes you can, for instance, you in a computer, sometimes you may have 1 or 2 semesters or 3 or 4 quarters, but sometimes it's very little time for people to absorb so much, and as technology changes and needs change, then that is a more difficult task. But there is an interaction, and the fact that we can work together jointly with LACNIC, that helps prepare the people better and train them better. Those are the challenges that we have on the other side of the counter, not as network operators, but trying to make possible something that people sometimes forget, that the internet was created at a university following an initiative of the American state, and so originally it started in the universities. So now we need the issues of observability and AI. Those are things that for which we have to reconnect with that environment to get solutions. Yes, indeed. Thank you for these last comments, because they help us introduce the next question that we'd like you to give us your
This has to do with the role, something you mentioned already, the role of the different sectors. What would be the role of the academia, of the academic institution, of the research groups at academic institutions, of the technical community, of the industry, in the sense of tackling, for example, all these challenges that are just some of these, like Paolo was mentioning, there are infinite challenges, but the ones that we mentioned here are just a few. How could these be tackled, and what could be the role of each of the players? And specifically that, but also to strengthen and tackle issues that might arise in the future. Lucas, would you like to start? Yes, personally, I think that from my standpoint, the role of the technical community, at least in my field, consists in observing, reporting incidents, understanding how the models we implemented work. The role of the academia would be to improve certain models, to use less resources, and also the industry would be in charge of bringing together all these ideas and taking this to reality. Personally, I feel that I'm quite fortunate because I work in the laboratory of NIC Chile. So we have the role as a laboratory to serve as the academia, and NIC has the technical role. And because it's a CCTLD, as the industry, my laboratory makes strong investments in young people in the university. And I am now doing my PhD degree, but in my pre-graduate studies, I started my research with people who are doing their PhD degrees. So we have to invest in young people who haven't graduated from university. This brings the academia closer to the real world. On the other hand, that as the academia, we tend to listen too much to the needs of the industry. It turns out that we have an idea, we are following a path, but as researchers, we sometimes want to discover other paths. But in discovering other paths, we somehow leave aside the objective of what we were focusing on originally. So we need to have communication, and the academia does have to listen carefully. Douglas? While you were asking your question, I was thinking precisely on what we need, what we really need. We need to encourage people to understand that there are many different roles, and that the roles of the individual is where the person is. We can define the roles today, and Monday we'll have different roles. That is something that I no longer do. For example, I will no longer have to standardize things even more. Things change at an amazing speed. We cannot even keep pace with the changes. The thing is that in each of these roles, I do something with the goal of taking that and delivering it to the next step. So this then can be picked up, adjusted, and so on and so forth. So what I am doing right now will depend on what someone before me did. And if that person did it properly, it will be useful. We have to understand that I'm doing this right now. But if necessary, I can change positions and have a different role. So this is a very important feature. There are multiple roles, and everything has to fit in with everything else. It doesn't matter whether you are from the academia, because those who are in the academia have to understand that at a given moment you might be developing a role in the commercial field, or you might even be active in a different area. So we used to see someone working for a given company, but at a given moment they had to do a master's degree to advance in their careers. But this is no longer the case. At all times, everything is happening at the same time there are multiple different roles. Same individual is playing different roles at different time. So what I have learned in one day is something that you can take advantage of, academically speaking. So we really have to focus on that type of spirit. Otherwise, it's like in the Charles Chaplin movie, always doing the same task in the factory. You have to have different roles in this world. So adding on to what Douglas was saying, it is quite obvious that we have to be as flexible as possible in order to better adjust to the demands and the different roles. And what we might need in order to have a bit of synergy between the different players is resistance. I'm going to speak from my standpoint now. On the side of the academia, my colleagues with all the PhD degrees and so on are sort of not so willing to speak with the experts. They think they know more than the technical experts. I think that each one is an expert in their own field. Maybe at university, people know more how to conduct research, but if you are working in the technical area, you're more aware how things work and how you can make a network function. So in theory, I know how things should work, but in practice, those who are doing the hands-on job know how things work. So we have to really tear down those barriers. So going back to what I mentioned initially, regarding the visibility of data, we cannot solve problems if we don't have access to data. If we cannot measure those data, and considering what Arturo just mentioned a while ago, we also have the issue of funding. We have knowledge to produce more, and to produce more knowledge, we also have the method. Very often in Brazil and in Latin America, we nevertheless require funding to find solutions to the problems or to hire a person, or sometimes we need a new equipment. And if the industry realizes that university can find solutions, then maybe they can collaborate in that sense. A further point that we should go back to is a discussion we had back in Paraguay. Today, in the field of computing, we have recommendations from the different entities as to what should be taught in an IT course. We have to teach about computer networks, we have to teach TCP/IP models, addressing, and so on. But no more details, because technology is so volatile and there are also changing needs. So you have the technical aspects, you have the academia, and maybe together with LACNIC, a document could be produced by a committee stating that the technical community sees that these are important points and should be included in the curriculum. Like Carmen and Cristina spoke about training students. Maybe we can train better professionals for the technical community.
So what you mentioned is not a document, but considering the interdisciplinarity of the academia, because people, for instance, now see different languages and writing code, and sometimes those people don't even know what an IP address is or what a socket is, so that causes trouble. It's a set of problems, because that person doesn't even know the existing network, but they write a special code, specially related to latency. So those people must understand that they are just a piece of a whole. So everything is segmented, but it's all part of a whole. Sorry for the interruption.
Rome in 2010. I don't remember what number was it. But I was there, and I was working for an operator. And I have this friend, Elisa. She was working for a big CDN back then. And she told me like, hey, Paolo, I have a friend. You speak a lot about BGP. She was not really in BGP, but I was speaking a lot about BGP, and she said, I have this other friend, and he speaks a lot about BGP. I mean, I have to connect you two because you are going to be best friend forever. And he was Pierre from the IMDEA Institute in Madrid, so applied research. And we started speaking and drinking, you go over drinking, big ideas come. And so essentially, like, he told me about, he was trying to talk to several operators. He was trying to talk with AT&T, Spring, a number of people, trying to understand whether route leaks can have other application than security, right? People want to leak routes for, I don't know, economical purposes, strategic purposes. And he said he was only finding shut doors, so nobody was answering. And I was telling, I'm working for this operator, and actually I am, using traffic leaks for economical purposes. I mean, I decrease our transit bill by doing a few tricks and whatever. And so essentially, like, for me, this is and so we kept talking and talking and talking, and this then generated an RFC at ITF about practices in route filtering and whatever. So it was a great cooperation. So what I want to say with that is that venues like LACNIC, like RIPE, they have a big role in getting, researchers and industry together. So that's very important. And, the end of the story is that then the PhD candidate that was in this research, we kept collaborating. And then he's a colleague of mine now at NTT, now that he's maybe a little bit too old for research, let's say. But so two key points I wanted to bring here. So one, that is applied research is super important because it has that interdisciplinarity that Douglas was talking about. It's dynamic, it's interdisciplinary, it's agile, so it's a very important linking point. And it also works in a more, business-oriented way sometimes, that it helps reducing the gap with the industry. And the other point that I wanted to make is that I heard quite a fair criticism from Lucas, from Douglas, about self-criticism, about the research and non-ability to be dynamic and whatever, or follow the trends properly. But I have also to be self-critic on the industry, on the network operators for example, because there is quite the majority of network operators, like the story that I was telling, wanted to demonstrate, is that they are really shutting the door. Like they don't really have a sense of innovation. Maybe they have a market, especially the incumbents. They already have the market, they have already whatever. They really have no drive. They are dead brain to innovation. And this is also a big problem. So the best thing would be for researchers to be connected to those bright operators with a sense of innovation, and they are very little. So.
Muchas gracias, Pablo, y muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you all. So, wrapping up this first part of the questions, and given that we don't have much time left, many already mentioned specific cases where you consider that you could collaborate and make it easier to find synergisms between the different players. So if you want to add anything else, go ahead. So 2 essential things that you may consider based on which you could start promoting that sort of collaboration. Lucas, would you like to start? Yes, I repeat, for me it is essential if we want to move forward as a region to act as such, sharing the same objective. And I go back to the same, and to listen to the needs of the industry and the academia and the technical part. I think that that's the best way we can move forward. So, Pedro is always complaining that Pedro,
monte de coisa que eu há anos venho aos LACNICs e venho nos tutoriais e aprendo o que tem que ser feito, mas ninguém faz. Todo mundo reclama que não tem LUC Inglés, que não tem.
Many people complain that we don't have whatever we need. So maybe now what I come here to say is it's something that goes beyond, transcends, and from the point of view of the academia and the network operators, it involves LACNIC both in the public policy forum and in the board. And I would also what does a network operator do with a looking glass? What do you obtain with that as the workers of a company or the company itself? Actually, they don't get anything, but they just need to, if they put a looking glass to execute and tomorrow it doesn't work, they're to blame, but if they hadn't executed a looking glass, there would be no problems. So I think that I want to provoke LACNIC. How are we going to get LACNIC to make the network operators to have a real incentive and not just saying, oh yes, we're going to do it because we want to, because just because you want to, it won't work. So as LACNIC, for the operators, those operators that have goodwill may be gratified because of that. So I leave you with a difficult question. Well, yes, I agree with what you mentioned, Douglas, that the data is important. It's important for the people to see what the benefit will be. However, of the people that conduct the research, I think that LACNIC, I brought examples already where the data that we analyze bring return for the operations. Specifically, on Monday we're talking about the IXPs. Tomorrow we're going to talk about internet resources. So the results is that there are inputs about internet operations that may improve the operations for all. So 2 quick comments about sharing data. This morning, I was at a Brint and I heard someone that said, a company said, oh, I've seen research papers on this, but it's always with rather old data. And the response that we gave them was, yes, because only the industry have those data sets and they don't share them. So the only thing that we can do is to work with old data, because when we request the data, they won't give them. So the industry is saying that they're not updated, but they are the ones that can give us the updated data. And the last thing that I wanted to say was something that Hernán Arcidiácono said when he mentioned cooperation, and Arturo also talked about the case of Brazil. For the Brazilian companies that operate in Brazil, it's not difficult to conduct research work and to finance operations at a university level, and even because there are fiscal government benefits. So those in Brazil, please, if you're interested in learning more, please get in touch with me and I can let you know. Bueno, hay problemas.
Jesus Arturo from Monterrey and also Cristina talking about BGP. I am in BGP. I think I represent one of those operators that are, open to innovation. So I would say, let's connect. So that's my most practical thing. LACNIC is being successful at connecting, industry and research.
Bueno, excelente, muchas gracias a todos.
That was excellent. Thank you all. Before we go to the next stage, Q&A panel, just in case you have any question, I'd like to highlight some of the key issues that everybody highlighted, and especially the speakers in the first block. On the one hand, in the case of Carmen, who focused on talent and university training and the lack thereof, and also the importance of training for industry and having soft skills and updating and the partnerships, alliances between the technical community, the industry, and the academia. And also, Cristina Meyer mentioned the opportunities that what the universities can provide and the research groups so that people may continue to strengthen and develop the internet. Ernesto Sanchez mentioned the importance of training, dissemination, and research, and putting tools at the disposal of for the industries.
Hernan told us about the fact that the telecom industry, he told us that the connection is precisely in training, and also the need, as stated by Arturo Pérez from the Tecnológico de Monterrey, who spoke about figuring out solutions to complex problems and to share complex problems on behalf of the technical community. Data also referred to the issue of funding. And regarding this panel, I'd like to thank you all for your input. We heard about the significant difference between the academia and the technical community. This is something that Douglas mentioned, and also with the network operators, there is a need to have more cohesion. Paolo also spoke about the endless number of challenges we have. We heard about how the academia in certain cases haven't fully managed to respond rapidly to the technological changes. We also heard about the need of actively listening to and generating spaces of cases such as the one we are having here, and the specific projects bringing together two sides. And finally, to generate greater flexibility to tear down barriers between the different stakeholders. We heard about the need to have contributions from the technical community. This is something that Pedro mentioned, this beyond document mechanisms whereby the technical community could contribute to the problems, the needs, or specific requirements that are defined so that work can be done on that and figure out specific solutions. So this is a very brief summary. We have very little time, but if there are any questions from the public, please go up to the microphones. Otherwise, we will later conduct a brief survey. This is an open survey. You can access the QR code. This is for the open space, so you can give us your feedback, so that you can make contributions, or from anyone who participates in LACNIC 43. This survey will be open over the next 2 weeks, so we invite you to access this QR code. These are very brief questions. The objective is to continue generating spaces such as this, in addition to trying to bring together and figuring out joint solutions. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you for accepting to participate in this panel, and also thank you to the speakers who were in the initial lightning talks. Enjoy the rest of this LACNIC 43 event. Thank you very much.